Colossus is the most advanced lineup optimizer in daily fantasy sports. Lock and exclude players. Adjust player exposure to reduce risk of injury or poor performance. Customize individual projections or upload your own projections. Generate hundreds of optimal lineups in seconds. Name and save the best lineups. Create winning lineups for the top sites like DraftKings and FanDuel for free at dailyfantasycafe.com.
Hello and welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Josh Shepardson at BChad50, talking about tonight's action. And for, the first time in a while, a really big Wednesday slate. Seems like a lot of times we get some games early, some games late. Usually not a full slate, but pretty full slate. So we'll try to get this going quickly for you. A lot of big names on the mounds, but you and I are in agreement that if you're paying up for a pitcher for your cash games, it makes sense to lock in David Price at $12,500. You got a $1,500 discount from Jake Arrieta. Price listed as a minus 240 favorite, 7-run total, a much bigger favorite and a much easier matchup. It just makes a lot of sense to go ahead and lock in Price, but let's not overlook Arrieta in your GPPs though, because last time I checked, he was one of, if not the best pitcher in baseball over the past month, not named Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, and I mean, he's consistently pitching deep into games, racking up strikeouts, and that prohibitive price point's going to drive his ownership down.
Yep.
People are going to take the discount on Price and Archer and Keuchel, and that's going to leave a low ownership rate for Arrieta against a Pirates team that does hit right-handed pitching well, but they also strike out in over 20% of their plate appearances against righties too. So there is some upside there for Arrieta, especially in a pitcher-friendly park like PNC Park. So I do like him in GPPs. Love Price in all game formats. And then Keuchel, a guy that was featured in the GPP Chin Music today, guy that I like quite a bit against the Rangers with a 4-run over-under total for the Rangers. Might see some people scared off, but Keuchel is a favorite. The Rangers ranked 22nd in WRC plus against left-handed pitchers this year. Keuchel's strikeout rate way up in the second half, still inducing ground balls at a high rate, pounds the strike zone, does everything you want from a starting pitcher, pitches deep. I like Keuchel quite a bit in GPP. Few other names I'm looking at. Bartolo Colon looks like the best value SP2 to me in terms of floor and the Vegas backing, basically. He's your second biggest money line favorite tonight against that. Yes, they did beat up on Jacob deGrom last night, but they still rank in the basement against right-handed pitchers in terms of WRC+. Colon's in good form over the last month or so. I have to throw dirt on him for a while now, and he just keeps bouncing back and putting together strong performances like he has lately. Alex Wood is 6,600. I'm actually using him in cash games. I prefer him in GPPs, but the Rockies are the worst offense in baseball, both against lefties and on the road. They strike a ton away from Coors Field and against Southpaws, so I like Alex Wood a great deal tonight, and at his price tag at just $6,600, you can pair him with an ace and still get a ton of big bats in your lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with you there. It's one of those nights where it seems like you're best served paying up or going with one of those guys that you mentioned there. The Gio Gonzalez thing, it's just maybe it's a personal preference for me. I'm not a believer of his really in most formats. He's obviously in play for GPPs because he does have upside, but what he isn't is consistent. So it's a guy that I'll probably stay away from for the most part, but that's not to say that he's a bad secondary option. I just would much rather have Bartolo Colon, who, despite being about 75 years old, has been doing it for a hell of a lot longer. And like you mentioned with Dallas Keuchel, over the last 30 days, he's got a strikeout rate over 30%. So all those people coming around saying Dallas Keuchel doesn't have upside, he's not a GPP play, those kind of people are here now scratching their heads wondering how they missed out for so long, because Keuchel has huge upside tonight. So moving over here to catcher, if you're paying down, it makes sense for it to be John Jaso, as it usually is when Tampa Bay is facing a righty. It's a good righty in Luis Severino, but it's a guy who got beat around a little bit in his last start, and Jaso just $2,900. Probably your best value play if you're paying down. But then if you're paying up, I mean, there's a couple guys in really good spots. You got Evan Gattis he's first base eligible on DraftKings. I'm so used to him still having the catcher eligibility, but I'll throw him out there and then we'll move back to catcher. So who else are you looking at catcher here?
I mean, in GPPs, punting catcher or paying down catchers very popular. So paying up to Travis d'Arnaud at $5,000 as a contrarian. He's absolutely crushed left-handed pitching this year. Adam Conley, not good against right-handed batters, so that's really a perfect match for him. Kyle Schwarber, who is catcher and outfield eligible, $4,400. Doesn't get great park factors at PNC Park, but it hasn't mattered. When he's connecting with these right-handed pitcher offerings, he's sending the ball a long way. So I do like him quite a bit, but not a guy that I think you have to spend up for in cash games. Like you said, I like JSO in cash games. I think paying down here makes a lot of sense. But another option in the bargain bin for GPPs is Matt Wieters, assuming he's in the lineup for Buck Showalter. The switch-hitting catcher has been much better against lefties in his career, and Henry Owens has been up and down in his rookie season for the Red Sox.
Yeah, I like that call. And then Derek Norris, I'll throw in there as well at 3,300. Looks like yesterday he did sit out, but apparently Hedges was scheduled to start anyway, it looks like. So Norris should be back in the lineup, gets a lefty in Arizona, huge park shift for him. So I think he's a good GPP play there. First base options. You and I were talking about how Joey Votto's price is way too cheap against the ghost of Jake Peavy. Peavy obviously nowhere near what he was at one point in his career. And Votto, as a real baseball player, hasn't been bad over his last few days necessarily, but from DFS perspective, he has. But $4,400 in this matchup, despite the bad ballpark, he just makes a ton of sense. And then the opposite side of that same exact game, you get Brandon Belt at $4,300 against Michael Lorenzen and his .439 WOBA allowed to lefties. And it's not that small of a sample size anymore. It's up to 42 innings. So get yourself some lefties on the Giants side.
Yeah, I like those calls. I think in GPPs, paying up for David Ortiz makes sense. Stephen Wright's been bad, or I'm sorry, Mike Wright's been bad against left-handed batters. Ortiz is crushing the ball in the second half. He's hammering righties all year as he has throughout his career. Chris Davis makes for an interesting play in a lefty-lefty matchup with Henry Owens. Davis has been good against lefties this year. Big power, great ballpark yards. Jose Abreu against Cody Martin looks good at home. The Cell, great ballpark for right-handed power. And Abreu, very good against right-handed pitching. And then all the way down in the bargain bin, there's a guy that I'm looking at that's also outfield eligible. Brandon Moss was out of the lineup yesterday. I'm going to guess he'll be in there tonight against Peralta. Mike Matheny would be wise to get as many left-handed bats in that lineup as possible. Maybe it's in the corner outfield instead of Steven Piscotty. Maybe it's at first base instead of Matt Adams, but either way, I'm expecting to see him in the lineup against Peralta. Peralta very giving to left-handed batters, great ballpark factors at Miller Park, and just $3,000 to roster him.
Yeah, and if he's not, and Matt Adams is, and I mean that's another guy that's a lefty you can target there. So whichever one of those guys ends up getting a start, maybe they both do. Both viable options, if you ask me. And then looking at some one more guy, I was talking about it for a long time while he was hurt, but Lucas Duda has been better against lefties and better at home. Gets Adam Conley, who you mentioned isn't good against righties. Hasn't faced a lot of lefties, but hasn't been very good against them either. So that's your sneaky upside play. He's been bumped down in the order, batted 7th last time, but definitely a guy with some upside here, though. Second base options, Jose Altuve is probably your top option if you're taking out price, but considering we are on a salary cap here and we have to factor in price, he's probably more of a GPP play at $5,400.
Yeah.
Brian Dozier, $1,100 less, gets a lefty at home, and while his numbers this year against lefties haven't been what we are accustomed to over the past few years, he's still an elite play. Still has 27 homers on the year, tons of upside. So you got to imagine he's going to be a really popular play there at second base.
I think he's going to be the most popular play. I think he makes a lot of sense in cash games, but that home run upside also keeps him in play in GPPs. I'm also looking at Ian Kinsler against Irvin Santana. If the bad Santana shows up, he's not a bad play. Anthony Rendon gets a righty instead of the initial scheduled lefty Adam Morgan, but really bashed at the big league level so far. So I like Rendon. Nationals have a big total tonight. Robbie Cano against very good. Weaver's been very giving to left-handed batters this year. Cano really turned it on in the second half, so I feel comfortable running him out there. Colton Wong has had a bad second half, but Willie Peralta, as I've mentioned multiple times already in the podcast, struggles with left-handed batters. Miller Park is a great venue for left-handed hitters, so I like Colton Wong quite a bit. Wilmer Flores is in play for me. He's turned into quite the lefty killer this year. I like him a bit better at shortstop, but if there's a bargain play that you like there, he is a viable option at second base as well. And my favorite value play at the position, though, is $2,900 Steve Pearce. Typically bats second or fifth against left-handed pitchers. either lineup spot would be great. Henry Owens has been up and down. He's had good starts, but he's also had some clunkers thrown in there. Pierce not having his big year against lefties like he did last year, but his since 2013 numbers are impressive, and I do have some faith in the power hitting infielder, outfielder, second baseman, outfielder. So I do like Pierce a bit at 2,900.
Yeah, that's a great cheap call with some upside. Third base options, David Wright's going to be a very popular play, and rightfully so. Same reasons we mentioned with Conley at $4,400. But some other interesting guys, Manny Machado, you mentioned Owens and his struggles. Nolan Arenado always has some big upside at $4,600. He's not often under 5K, and as we saw last night, he homered again. Has only 39 on the season. Not too far behind Nelson Cruz there either. So if you want some power upside at low ownership, he's there. But Miguel Sano probably going to be the popular play if you're paying up past David Wright, because Sano has just insane power at 4,700.
Yeah, and Daniel Norris striking out fewer than 20% of the right-handed batters he faces. So if you can't exploit Sano's strikeout tendencies, and you're in for a long night against him. And another name I'm looking at third base is his teammate Trevor Plouffe. 4,100 makes for an interesting GPP play, because I think that price tag is going to turn some people off from him, but Plouffe does hammer left-handed pitching. And then a couple guys, $4,200 Matt Carpenter against Peralta. You know the drill already at this point. Yep. Also enjoying a career power year, though. He's hit 21 home runs, posting the highest ISO of his career in a single season. And then Kyle Seager, get another lefty against Jared Weaver. I think that's a very viable play. But beyond that, the cheapest I'm willing to pay is $4,000 Anthony Rendon. I don't see a lot of value in going much cheaper. A lot of good options between that $4,000 price range and Miguel Sano at the top of the heap in terms of players that I'll use. Josh Donaldson, 5,100, but I don't see any value there.
Yeah, I'll throw out one more guy that is not much cheaper than 4K, though. Travis Shaw is a guy that if he's in the lineup, he's been hitting really well at 3,400. So GBP only, of course, but he's certainly a guy to consider. Shortstop options, Carlos Correa, wherever I can get him, that's who I'm paying for in this matchup. It's a tremendous matchup, great ballpark. So if I have the money, that's where I'm going. Francisco Lindor, another guy who he just continues to do everything. He's stealing bases, he's hitting for power. He's been tremendous since he's come up. So if you can't quite get Correa, I think that Lindor is a fine swerve off him.
Yeah, and I'll just continue with this rookie shortstop theme, and I'll mention Corey Seager, who, if you haven't been reading the cheat sheets the last few days, you might not be aware that he actually had a reverse platoon split in the minors. OPS over 1,000 in the minors against lefties and under 900 against righties. So there is a pretty big gap there, and we do have a pretty sizable sample size there. So Seager really hits left-handed pitching hard. Jorge De La Rosa, not exactly lefties, but a little more giving than some past seasons. So I don't mind using him, assuming he's in the lineup, and he should be. And then beyond that, I'll go back to the Wilmer Flores hype train and just point out that he really has crushed left-handed pitching this year, and this is the position that I prefer pay for him at.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. There's not a whole lot of other options at shortstop unless someone ends up with a nice lineup spot like Freddie Galvis at 3K. But other than that, it's going to be I'm trying to get Correa in all my lineups if I can here.
Yep.
Outfield options, Bryce Harper hit 2 homers last night. Doesn't have a much worse matchup tonight. I can't imagine we're going to see him at over 30% owned, but who knows? So maybe we'll see all the people who are proud of their 100% exposure to him once again tonight. But that will not be me. I'll certainly have some exposure, but not on every lineup. Chris Davis, who you mentioned, has outfield eligibility, of course. And I'll go ahead and skip down a little bit to a guy that I like. Not too much cheaper, but George Springer, $4,500. This is another one of those guys that can do it all, batting atop a lineup that's expected to score a lot of runs tonight. So I think he's in a great spot, too.
Yeah, really hits left-handed pitching hard, too, and his strikeout rate substantially lower against lefties than righties in the big league. So I like that. I'll mention Schwarber again because I do think it's a contrarian play to stick him in the outfield, since you figure most people that roster him are going to stick him at the weaker position, which is catcher. Adam Jones at 4,300 looks excellent against the lefty at home, posting big numbers against Southpaws at Camden Yards this year and last. Josh Reddick coming off of a big game. Price tag might prohibit some people from using him, but you're also going to see some people going the way of the lemming and chasing the big night last night. I have no problems using him against Eric Johnson at U.S. Cellular Field, but just know that he might get an artificial boost in ownership based on what he did last night and people point chasing. But there's a lot of value in the outfield. I think your chalkiest outfield, great play as well, is $3,500 Jason Hayward. All the guy's doing is ripping off multi-hit games. He's got 5 of them in a row. No, 4 of them in a row. I just can't count. Hit a home run last night, a pair of doubles in the game before. He's locked in, really good form, crushing righties again this year, and great ballpark factors at Miller Park against Willie Peralta. So I don't understand the pricing, but I'm not this gift horse in the mouth. I'm going to go ahead and slot him into my cash games rosters and some GPPs too. A little more expensive than him, I like Aaron Hicks, who's crushed lefties. The toolsy switch hitting outfielder has really figured it out this year and is enjoying a breakout season. Daniel Norris, that type of pitcher that I expect to keep him in check. $3,300 David Peralta home, getting a righty that struggled mightily with lefties. Andrew Kashner serving up a 380 WOBA to left-handed batters this year. Love Peralta at Chase Field tonight for just $3,300.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. So that's a great play for you there. And if you're looking for really cheap guys, Mikey Matuk is another guy, $2,600. Makes a lot of sense as a cheap play. And outside of that, I mean, I'm sticking with those two guys you mentioned there. Hayward, Peralta, just makes a lot of sense to lock those guys into your cash games tonight. All right, that's going to wrap things up for us. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out lots of great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.